The Argentinian novelist Borges describes an imaginary being called the Goofus bird. This amazing creature spends its entire life just circling the top of a mountain. Every day, just circling it, completely airborne throughout his life. Right? The weird thing about this bird is that it doesn't fly like normal birds because it flies backwards, constantly backwards. Right? And according to Borges, the reason why it's flying backwards is related to its absolute fear of what is to come. It's scared to death about future, but it is completely okay with its past. This is an image that haunts me when I go to work, when I study the digital transformation of the public sector. This bird flying backward. And the context where I'm studying this is this amazing country, Sweden, right? The most modern country in the world, I would argue. The most innovative country in the world, I would argue. The country that has brought you innovations such as Spotify, such as the safety match, such as the safety wrench, such as the, Klarna, Minecraft, right? I mean, for God's sake, we invented ABBA, right? But that's not the sort of pinnacle of innovation in Sweden. The most beautiful thing of all is the welfare system that is there to catch us if we fall. If we should stumble, it is there to help us out. It is a wonderful thing. But during recent years, we've seen rumblings. Something is awry. Something might be rotten in the state of Sweden. And at the core of this lies the demographic changes that we see globally, right? Because there are more and more elderly people. We're seeing an increase in elderly. We're seeing a decrease in young people. And this shifts something. It presents a fundamental challenge to the public sector because they are going to have to help out. The welfare system needs to be increased in terms of what they produce, what they deliver. At the same time, there will be fewer people to actually do that work. So when we do the calculations, we end up with something like this. So up until the year 2030, we are going to have to increase what we deliver from the public sector to 125% of what we deliver today. And we're going to have to do that with 75% of the personnel that we have today. This is a significant challenge. This is a paradigm shift for us. But the problems don't stop there, right? We have massive challenges that we need to address. I mean, you saw the picture of Sweden. It's a beautiful country, it's fantastic, but we can do better, right? So, let me give you 3 examples where we absolutely need to work better and need to improve. So, the first example is from the elderly care. So every year, we have 70,000 people, elderly, falling so bad that they need hospitalization. This, of course, infers massive costs on the healthcare system, but also significant suffering for these individuals. They will not live as long as they would if they hadn't fallen. They would not suffer as much if they hadn't fallen. A terrible situation for these 70,000 individuals. If we look at schools, we know that 16% of students, they drop out before completing school, posing a massive cost on society and, of course, significant suffering for these individuals and their loved ones. And in terms of the environment, we are botching it. We promised to deliver on net zero by 2030, but we're not going to make it. I'm sorry, I've got bad news. Yeah, we are not delivering on target. We are not doing what we should do in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So, given that we have these challenges, wouldn't it be cool if there were technologies out there that could solve them? Wouldn't it be wonderful if there actually were solutions that we could just sort of put in place? Right? And that's the good news here. There are solutions. So if we look at the elderly care and falling accidents, we've seen examples where they can reduce falling accidents with 60 to 77% through merely the use of sensors or infrared sensors, algorithms, and notifications to the caregivers. A reduction of up to 77% of falling accidents. Isn't that amazing? And if we look at the schools, we know that 13% of the population suffers from dyslexia. Wouldn't it be nice if these individuals would be able to be granted the resources that they actually have a right to get? Right? We have a technology that could, merely through the use of a tablet and the camera, an algorithm, could actually screen for dyslexia, identifying the individuals that are at risk and providing additional resources, thereby reducing the dropout rates. In terms of the environment, we have technologies for residential buildings that merely through the use of a sensor, through an algorithm, and through integrated controls can reduce the energy consumption of that house with 50%. Cool, right? I mean, this is a gospel. Fantastic. The problem here is that these technologies exist. They are fantastic. They are readily available on the market and awaiting somebody to actually start to use them. They have been waiting for up to 20 years for somebody to use these technologies. But we are not using them. We are not scaling these technologies. We are spending an enormous amount of resources on proof of concept there, proof of concept there, proof of concept there, but we are not scaling it. We are not reaching broad adoption of these technologies. And I'm back to the bird, right? This bird just keeps on flying backwards, constantly flying backwards. It really pisses me off. Why? Why? And that's when we start thinking about the opportunity cost, this wonderful concept. So the opportunity cost is a way in which we can capture the cost of not doing something, the cost associated with not choosing a certain option. And if we can start to calculate that, if we can start to get people to understand that not adopting a certain solution that can decrease, for instance, falling accidents with up to 77% is actually associated with a cost, a yearly cost. So let's look at those opportunity costs in this example. So, in the case of the elderly care, when we do those calculations, we identify an opportunity cost per year of 1 billion euros. So if we would to scale this technology, we would save 1 billion euros a year. Not scaling it results in us flushing that money down the drain. And then we're not even calculating the value of decreased suffering among individuals. In terms of the school, our calculations show that, 0.6 to 2.6 billion euros a year in opportunity cost for not using these technologies on a broad level. In terms of the environment, we have 12 billion euros a year that we could save, that we are now just squandering year after year after year. That is weird, right? So, when we think about this, we think about, if you find yourself in a situation where you actually can decrease the suffering of a group of individuals, if you can create enormous savings, wouldn't it be a moral obligation to do so? Wouldn't it be a moral imperative to scale these solutions if it's within your power? Wouldn't it be a moral affront if you didn't scale these technologies? Wouldn't it be something that should be shunned, that should be associated with a high level of shame, right? You should be held accountable for botching it. So what do we need to do then? Well, if we look at this beautiful bird, I think that we have a shot. I think that we can get it to turn its head. Well, as citizens, what can we do? Well, we can absolutely state our demands, right? We can demand that these solutions are implemented. We can if we have an elderly or a next of kin in an elderly care facility, we can demand that these technologies are implemented. We state that we require this. If we have a child in school, or a sister in school, or grandchildren in school, we can require that these technologies are put to use. Or if we live in a building, government controlled or not, we can make sure that these technologies are implemented. As a researcher, well, I can just tell you what we're doing. We are starting to actually try to make a difference. We are helping organizations calculating the opportunity cost. We are actively working to create the transparency necessary, because there are so many cool examples of these technologies being put into use, but there's no transparency. So we aren't aware of all these cool examples that are out there. So we're creating the first real-time database on a national level, where anybody can just go in there and look after these solutions. If you're a policymaker or a decision maker, well, you can start to act. You can actually start to inform yourself and start to calculate the opportunity cost. Include that in the briefs. Include that in the templates where you base your decisions on. That's what you can do. And I believe that if we do this jointly, then we'll get this bird to finally start to turn its head. And that bird is going to see a future that's so beautiful and so bright. Thank you so much.